Berejiklian will become the 45th Premier of New South Wales after being chosen as Liberal leader in an early morning party room meeting this morning, and she's just holding a media conference now.
Mike Baird for the outstanding contribution he has made as Premier of New South Wales. New South Wales is the economic and infrastructure powerhouse of the nation, and Mike Baird has led that charge. He has made a big difference to the lives of the people of this state, which was his intention when he came to politics, and I want to extend my personal gratitude to him, but also on behalf of all the people that he has served, and wish him and Karen and his family the best for the future. I want to also thank my parliamentary colleagues for the trust they have invested in me today. I thank them for determining, based on my performance, that I am best for the job, and I am so excited that the party has come together united in support of my premiership. I want to thank Dom Perrottet for accepting to be the Deputy Leader of the Liberal Party. Dom and I have worked together side by side in the Expenditure Review Committee for 3 years, and I can assure you of his diligence and his intellect, and he will make an outstanding contribution to New South Wales, especially in his role as Treasurer, and I'm really looking forward to working with him in that capacity. But today is not just about myself or about the Deputy Leader. Today is about the 7.5 million people we represent in New South Wales, the 7.5 million people that rely on us and look to us to give them the leadership they deserve and the leadership they need. And I want to give this commitment today to those 7.5 million people, that I will be governing for everyone, that I'll be delivering for everyone. I'm proud of the fact that New South Wales has the strongest economy in the nation. I'm proud of the fact we have the strongest budget position in the nation. We cannot take for granted that we are the only jurisdiction in the nation, and I would say one of the few jurisdictions anywhere, that has virtually no government debt and billions to spend on services and infrastructure. But what we need to make sure is that every community across New South Wales gets its fair share, and that's what I'll be making sure happens. My government will listen to the community, not just at elections, but between elections. The community want and deserve to be heard, and they will be under my leadership. My government will be led by the values that are most important to me, and that's respect and hard work. And what I would like to do today is outline 3 key policy areas which will be hallmarks of my government. Firstly, local infrastructure. I'm just not talking about those mega projects in Sydney, as important as they are, but I'm talking about making sure every community gets what it needs. I know what difference it is to a community if a dirt road becomes a bitumen road. I know what difference it makes to a community if there's a new hospital ward, or if there's a toilet upgrade at the local sporting oval. Under my leadership, every community across the state will be better off and will get its fair share. Another issue which is very important to me and will be a huge priority for our government is housing affordability. As a government, we have done much in this area, but we know there is so much more to do. I want to make sure that every average hard-working person in this state can aspire to own their own home. That's something that I valued, worked hard to do, and I want to make sure everybody else has that opportunity as well. And finally, a third policy priority I'd like to outline today is a strong economy. A strong economy means more jobs, it means better services, and it means putting money where it's needed the most. But today there are 2 major influences which I believe have had the greatest impact on the type of person I am and the type of Premier I will be from today. Firstly, I've had the amazing opportunity to have the most outstanding human beings as my parents. I haven't talked about this much previously, but my father was a boilermaker, a welder, and one of the first jobs he did in Sydney was working on the Sydney Opera House, which is a great sense of pride for my family. My mum left school at 15 to help support her family and became a nurse, and during her career as a nurse, I've watched her take care of those most vulnerable and those most in need. Both of them were shift workers, and it wasn't uncommon for us to be with extended family as sisters to be taken care of. And then when I was older, it wasn't uncommon for me to look after my family. But every week, there wasn't a week that went by, I should say, when my parents didn't remind us of how lucky we were to have the opportunities we have here in New South Wales, how lucky we were to benefit from this great place, and they made us believe that we could be anything we aspired to be. And that's certainly what I bring to the job today. In our household, there was no room for complaining or making excuses. You just got on with the job and did it. And secondly, public education. As my parents were new immigrants, I was born here in Sydney, but when I started school, I couldn't speak English. I remember my mother said to me, don't worry if you don't really understand what the teacher says, put up your hand and have a go. But today, I took my mother's advice, but I want to pay tribute to all the teachers who during my life at school, in the public education system, saw something in me and encouraged it. And that's why you will have in me the strongest supporter of Gonski, because I know what a public education can do for somebody. And if I didn't have access to that education, I wouldn't be standing before you here today. But I want every person in New South Wales, no matter where they live, to feel that they have the choices and the opportunities to be their best. That's certainly what I have done, because that means a better quality for themselves and for their loved ones. And that's where government comes in. It's our job to provide the quality services and the infrastructure, and also to make sure these opportunities are available to everybody. But also we need to remember that governments can only do so much. And governments can, though, enable all of us to be better citizens, to exercise our freedoms, but also look out for each other. I look forward to leading a government that will listen, support and act for everyone across our great state, no matter where people live and no matter what their circumstances. Personally, I do know what it's like to battle, to struggle and to overcome challenges through sheer hard work. And I want this opportunity for everybody in our great state. New South Wales is the best place to live and work. We've done so much as a government to make sure that's the case. My job now, as the new Premier, is to make sure that everybody in our state, every community, gets its fair share. Thank you very much. Questions? Well, obviously, as a government, we've already done quite a bit. When we came to government, there was an undersupply of housing. We now have the highest approval rate that New South Wales has ever had. We have the highest construction rate. We also have reformed planning laws and local government laws. There's so much we've done, but there's more to be done. And I will be outlining those initiatives in the near future alongside my Deputy Leader, because it's something we want to make sure that every person in New South Wales can aspire to have their own home.
The man to your right has in fact pushed abolishing stamp duty in favour of a broad-based land tax, which has very wide support from people who know about this area. What's your view of that?
Yeah, I indicated previously that that's not my preference. I believe supply is the best way we can address housing affordability. But I'm someone who will listen and someone who has an open mind. But I strongly believe supply is the best way to address housing affordability. But we know as a government we have to do more, because that is the biggest issue that people raise with me in Sydney. It's the biggest concern people have across the state, and we will be doing all we can. And I will say here and now that I will be open-minded to seeking advice of people outside government, outside the bureaucracy, outside elected officials, to support us in that. I'm very open to that, and I will be looking forward to doing that.
Does that mean that you will listen?
Government. You've already got the national leader coming out wanting to unpick country mergers. You've got Mike Gallagher unwanted coming into party room. You've got Julian Skinner staring you down over a cabinet position. Is your team united?
Can I say one thing I did not expect is how quickly the party came in behind myself and the Deputy Leader. That did take me by surprise in a positive way. Our party room, our party, our government is united and strong, and we will continue to build on that strength moving forward.
Did you expect Mike Gallagher to walk into the party room today?
Today is about all of us coming together.
Did you expect Mike Gallagher to
It's all about... Well, look, he had indicated that publicly. He'd indicated he was doing that, and that was a decision for him. And there is some information that has come to light in recent weeks, which I will look at, which I haven't had a chance to do yet, and I'll have more to say about that.
What information?
No, there is opportunity for me to consider his position into the future. But I will say this. When it comes to matters of integrity, I will be stronger, not weaker, and I want to make that point very clear.
Premier, just engaging the electorate. We've had 7 premiers in a decade. The last premier didn't even last his full term. Why should the electorate put you in?
I've always said, people, when they ask me questions like that, judge me by my actions. I remember when I became Transport Minister, people said, you'll never get an electronic ticketing system, you'll never build the North West Rail Line, you'll never finish the South West Rail Line. I proved them wrong. When I became State Treasurer, they said, oh, you'll never successfully lease assets, you'll never be able to get rid of debt, you'll never be able to get billions. Prove them wrong. Today, I'm looking forward to the challenges. I know it won't be easy, but I'm really excited by the prospect of taking our state to the next level and making sure every community feels part of the success that we've built for 6 years as a government.
Should we be concerned about your cabinet being one largely based on who supported you and who did? You know, because people have said, I'll support you, but I want this or that. Look at this one. So, you know.
I am deeply grateful. I am deeply grateful that my colleagues have chosen me on merit, and Dom and I will be choosing our team on merit. And that is something I feel very strongly about. And I can't tell you how pleased I felt when I made the call to the now Deputy Leader, and asked him to step up and be the Deputy, because he and I believe, will be such a strong and powerful team in not only maintaining unity and strength in our government, but also in going the next step in making New South Wales the best place to be.
Doesn't Mr Barilaro want the Treasurer's job? Doesn't Mr Barilaro?
I will confirm this. Yesterday, when Mr Barilaro and his deputy and myself and my prospective deputy met, I can confirm this, that Mr Barilaro congratulated Dom on Dom assuming the Treasurer's role.
You were sitting around the cabinet table throughout Mike Baird's premiership, yet you're already going out trying to unpick decisions. How are you going to convince the electorate that you weren't complicit in any of this?
Oh, I take full responsibility, and I want to, because we've been a great government. We have made sure that our state, going from the worst economic position in the nation, having the worst budget position, is now the strongest. That means more jobs, better services, more infrastructure. We've made sure we've turned the state around in every single way, and we have a lot that we owe to Mike Baird's leadership. My job now is to continue that, and what I want to make sure is that the billions of dollars we have in infrastructure, the strong position that we have, is shared equally around New South Wales.
Will you unpick Sydney Council matters?
There are a number of issues which we will look and listen about. There's no doubt about that. I'm not going to make any definitive policy announcements here today. That's not my role. But my role is, going forward, to make sure I provide strong and stable leadership and make sure that I listen, support and act on behalf of the community.
When Julia Gillard was Prime Minister, she copped a lot of questions about her marriage status and her child status, many of them quite unfairly. But how prepared are you for those sorts of questions?
I've been in public life for a long time, and I've been a senior minister for 6 years. I'm ready for anything.
And so was Julia Gillard, and she did get questions about it, and there will be questions about it, unfairly as they might be. Are you prepared for those sorts of questions?
Sure, ask me one.
Well, I guess the obvious question is, do you think this is a disadvantage politically or electorally? Because people, you know, they have kids and they have families, and people sort of identify with that like they do more.
Sure. I say, take me as you see me. Dom Peritay's made up for me. You've got 4 kids. But, you know, I'm someone who's always been myself. Not all of us can plan how our life turns out. I'm a very happy person. If you'd asked me 20 years ago, would my life look like this? It probably would not be how it looks like. But I'm so grateful for the opportunities I've had. I've never let an opportunity go by. And I also want to say again, not because I have to, but because I want to, the closest people in my life are my family. And I'm not going to judge anybody on their personal circumstances. I'm here to govern for everybody, and I hope that people judge me on my merits and what I can do.
Premier, you said you'd listen to the community, not just at elections, but between elections. You say you're not going to say what you're going to change in terms of mergers or lockout laws, but surely you can say that there's a fresh look at it and everything's up for consideration?
No, I'm not going to say that everything's up for consideration, because we've been a very good government in many ways. but governments always can do better. We're never perfect. And there is a number of things we can do better, but I'm not going to say everything's up for grabs, because it's not. Governments from time to time have to make decisions in the best interest of the majority of the community, which aren't always popular. I'm up for that, but I will do that after I listen and I consult, and we will make sure that every decision we take is in the best interest of the majority of the people of New South Wales. And I remember in my roles as both Treasurer and both Transport Minister, there have been times when I have had to make decisions which are not the easiest, but when you know in your heart it's the right thing to do, you stay the course.
But are there areas that you're looking at? Are there specific areas that you're looking at that you might?
Look, there are. I'm looking forward to getting sworn in this afternoon, and after I do, there are some things I would like to talk to my colleagues about. But I want to make very clear, there's so much to be proud of in New South Wales, so much that our government has done well, and to suggest that everything up for grabs wouldn't be an accurate description. But to suggest that I will listen on issues which obviously are causing angst for people, of course I will do that.
What's changed your mind on the coastal mergers? You're obviously the Treasurer, you're a senior member of Cabinet that approved it. Why now will you not back that policy?
Oh, look, nothing has changed my mind. Nothing has changed. I've acknowledged that the leader of the National Party and others have made, obviously, in the community, many people have made comment about that issue. I've said that I'm willing to sit down and talk to my colleagues about that issue. I've not said one way or the other what I'll do about it, but it's appropriate for me today to take on board issues that I know are causing angst for people and dealing with them in the appropriate way.
Is that causing angst politically, or is that causing angst?
Oh, I think there's no doubt that some communities would prefer they didn't go through that process, and that's why people are reacting in a particular way.
In the case of Lara, they're in the High Court tomorrow. Are you going to stop them continuing to waste their money?
I'm going to make sure that I sit down with my colleagues, we discuss the issue, and then obviously we'll have something to say after that.
Is Gillian Skinner going to be in your cabinet?
I'm not going to make any speculation about positions or cabinet today, but I will say this. I'm proud to have served alongside all the colleagues I have. Being a good, strong government isn't easy. It takes a lot of work, a lot of grit and determination. And Dom and I and the National Party's leadership team will come together, and I can assure you this, we will put the best team forward for the 7.5 million people of this state. That's what we have to think about. We don't think about positions or who gets what. This is about the best people being on the paddock to take our state forward.
It's also about stability. It may be in the next 24 hours that the long-serving education minister and the long-serving health minister may have their heads on the chopping block. How does that equate with stability?
I'm not going to speculate or suggest anything or suggest the validity of any of the issues you've raised. We're not going to speculate in that regard. My job from today, and I feel it in the most responsible way possible, is that I now represent 7.5 million people. They are looking to me and my team for strong, stable government. They are looking to me to make sure I deliver on the ground for them in their local communities.
But obviously the cabinet that you choose is the cabinet that you want to see that go to the 2019 election and beyond. Is that correct?
When you're putting together a team, you have to put together the best people. You don't think about elections. You don't think about what's going to be regarded well or not. You think about who are the men and women that you put together to take our state forward, and that's exactly what we'll be doing. Can I answer that one first? Okay, thank you, because then I'll forget. Can I say that I appreciate that that the particular tax reform agenda that Premier Baird had wasn't successful in terms of the GST debate, but I'll say this. Aside from that issue, there's so many opportunities for us to sit down with the federal government and modernise Commonwealth-state relations. The system we have in place hasn't changed for decades in terms of how the states and Commonwealth deal with each other, and I have some really strong ideas about what I'd like to see happen. Don't ask me what they are today, because I won't tell you today, but I think there's a lot of room to move in other areas which will improve Commonwealth-state relations. And I think what is most important is the community does not want to see waste and duplication between levels of government, and I think there's so much opportunity there for us to reduce that waste and duplication and move forward.
Premier, speaking of waste, did you lie to the public about the $500 million blowout?
Do you know what? I'm really grateful that you raised that question because I want to address it, and if I take a bit long in answering it, please allow me to do so, because I'm someone who deals in fact, and I'll tell you the facts. When I was Transport Minister, the government had an estimated total cost of that project of $1.6 billion. That was our estimate. Very complex project, but one that is so important that I'm very proud of, that's going to change our city for the better forever. So that was the government's estimated total cost. We then, as good governments do, took our estimate to the private sector and said, we want to deliver this project, it's highly complex, what do you think? The private sector came back to us and said, if you want to include all these customer enhancements, if this is what you want to achieve, the project will cost $2.1 billion, it won't cost $1.6 billion. I made that open and clear at the time. So we're going back to
The Auditor General.
what the Auditor General said. The Auditor General's report highlighted, and I really asked people to read what she said. Firstly, she said the project was on time and on budget. Secondly, she said that all the processes were very robust. But what she did say, and I took on the chin because I was the Transport Minister at the time, she said when you estimated the total costs, there was stuff you should have included in there in hindsight, which you didn't. So she raised the issue of the stuff we should have included in there to get to the $2.1 billion figure. But I want to make clear that the $2.1 billion project is much, much better than what the community would have got for $1.6 billion. So can I make it very, very clear that what the public is getting is much better than what we thought we were giving the public.
The key question though is when did you know that because of pricing, mispricing and ambitions that costing
We knew that the private sector told us that to get the project you want with all the customer improvements that they suggested we make, and some of those things they suggested we took on board. They said if you want to make sure the city runs well during construction, if you want to make sure motorists have a better experience, pedestrians have a better experience, you need to provide extra resources. And we took that on board because no government has ever built a project that complex. And you know what? I was very upfront and open at the time. Some of you were at the press conference when I said we got it wrong. It's not 1.6, it's 2.1. And what the Auditor General has done is shed light on how we could have got the estimated total cost better. And what I love about that project and that process, and I came out and took it on the chin, is that you learn from that advice. That was. Can you just let me finish the sentence? Sure. So you learn from that experience and apply it to other things. And can I say this? That project will not only return $3 billion of benefits to the people of this state, but anyone who lives, works or visits the state will find Sydney such a better place to move around in.
The point that you're not addressing...
I'm sorry?
My beard used to like to surf in his spare time. What do you like to do?
What do I, if I had the time? To be very frank, I love reading, watching movies. I am an average golf player, but I know I don't have any more time for that in my life. But I'm pretty much a regular girl who likes to do regular things. Yeah. I'll tell you that another day.
You previously said that Liberal politics is about getting out of people's lives, not interfering. Can you completely rule out overturning the lockout laws in their entirety or to a significant degree?
Look, our government considered the independent advice we've got on the lockout laws, and that independent advice recommended we relax some of those provisions, which we did, and I'm in a comfortable place with where we're at the moment.
Just on the Commonwealth-state relations.
I have to confess there is one thing that Mr Trump and I have in common, and that's the number 45, and it pretty much stops after that.
Just on the issue of Commonwealth-state relations, I was a bit surprised because you didn't mention amongst your priorities the looming crisis in health funding in New South Wales. Now, 2 years ago, when you delivered your first budget, you were asked about this and how you were going to fix it, and you were confident that you would be able to find a resolution. And I think Tony Abbott at the time, in your second budget, you were asked the same question. You said you were still confident. You have failed to fix that. I know it's not your own problem necessarily, but How are you going to address this now that you are Premier?
Yeah, as you noticed, one of my 3 priorities was a strong budget and a strong economy. And we negotiated with the Commonwealth an arrangement which sees us through to 2019-20, so we do have time on our hands. I don't want to take away from the point you make, Sean. It's a very important point. We do have to fight for those extra health dollars, but we do have room to talk about that. And I'd like that discussion to be in a broader context of how we can better manage ourselves between the federal and state government in financial relations.
Okay, we'll leave that there for the moment. That was live.